there at the actual at a drinking nomikai for translators, and because a lot of translators don't want to translate porn because they don't want that on their resume because they're a bunch of little bitches. But I mean, yeah, I almost got a job at Google. I didn't obviously get it, but I was offered a job to come in for an interview because one of my she wasn't even a good friend, but she heard that anyway, that's a long story. But anyway, yeah, you can get connections through all this. It works. It's always good to go out there as much as you can and get the Facebook ads of everybody you know. And just be you. Don't be, unless you suck, then don't be you.
Be you to an extent, I think is much better. Anyways, I think let's move on, shall we?
Next. I'd imagine in order to work at a Japanese company, one's Japanese would have to be pretty good.
Yes.
For the sake of measurement, let's just use the JLPT scale. What level would you need to be in order to work at a Japanese company? N2 or N1? Also, do they expect a foreigner to have taken the JLPT? In the same topic, how long have you been studying Japanese? And if you did take the JLPT in order to work at a Japanese company, how did you go about studying for it? I hope this question isn't too long. That's fine. That's fine.
It's fine. Good stuff. It's a good question. It's a good question.
Bullshit.
So, to address this,
yeah,
I would say that depending on what you do, you may need N1 or N2.
Yeah, it all depends on what exactly you're doing, guys. Because, I mean, if you want to work at a foreign-related company where you're dealing with a lot of foreigners, then JLPT is definitely good because that's the only way foreign employers who don't speak Japanese can judge you, really, is by if you had the JLPT. I had the old one, the JLPT 1 for a while, but now that's gone. And so I signed up for JLPT 2 to take the new one on the new system. And most jobs, if you go to like Dai Job or other Japanese recruiters, like he said, depends on the job, but most jobs, I think, the smart companies know that N2 is just fine. But the dumbass companies that don't know shit about the JLPT think that you got to have JLPT 1. Like, even when you want, like, I look for jobs at, like, convenience stores. They want you to have JLPT 1.
That's stupid.
It's retarded, gay, and queer. Yeah.
But, do they expect? Well,
you don't have JLPT.
I don't have any other JLPTs. I've never had to take one. For any interview I've ever done or anything, they just interview me in Japanese, and it seems to go fine.
Yeah.
Again, went to a Japanese university though, so I'm sure that helps. Next, what's the next question?
So anyway, spiel it. But point is, you should try for the JLPT, but your goal for Japanese should not be I need to get the JLPT. I think your goal should be that I want to be fluent enough to pass an interview, and for fun, I will take the JLPT.
Your goal should not be to pass the JLPT when you're studying Japanese, because that's not really Japanese, and it's like saying, well, I speak English because I passed the SAT, which I'm just going to assume most people watching this have taken an SAT before. Yeah, you passed it, but does that really mean you're a master of English? It just sort of, it's not really like common English on the SAT, right?
To be fair, I never took the SATs.
What the fuck? Did you take the ACT?
I took the ACTs because
you
have to.
Okay, it's like you have to take one or the other.
I went community college, then college. It's great. Anyway, but yeah, I know what you're saying. But yeah, basically, like we were saying, JLPT is used for if you don't know the shit. That's all. So, if for people who don't know Japanese, it's a way for them to grade you, and for jobs that aren't really that important. But for a normal Japanese job, if you can just prove that you came in there with a Japanese resume, your name's written in Japanese, you fucking go to the interview, you sit down like a normal Japanese person, that's all they really need for the most part. Anyway, next question. Pits. Got the pits. Okay. Since you're the only foreigner, how do your coworkers view you? Do you communicate with them frequently? Any friendly enemy relationships at work? That's a good question.
That is a wonderful question.
That's
My coworkers, I hope, like me. I mean, I talk to a lot of them quite frequently, but I work in a huge office, so I don't talk to that many people every day. I mean, I talk to people when I'm... Also, I sit in the farthest back area, right next to the CEO.
Oh, nice.
So people seem to try to avoid the CEO area
Yeah,
as
they don't
much as
wanna-
possible.
Yeah, don't stand out, kind of thing.
But when I go in the hallway or if I talk to people, people are very receptive and
Yeah.
very friendly. Made a few friends at work. I hope I don't have any enemies at work. People I think this might be something unique to real estate too, but everybody's incredibly nice in my office. There's no what I would consider mean or rude people or people I don't really want to talk to. Everybody in my office is really, really chill and very, very nice. So I think I just sort of lucked out with that. But
Well, that's good. No, I think that's true. Like, one of my best Japanese friends, and he knows him too because we live in the same area, Tetsu. I met him because his roommate, who worked at the same company, approached me when I was in the hall, and he's just like, "Hey, you're a foreigner," and I was like, "Hey, you're Japanese, bro?" And he's like, "No, I used to live in China, man." I was like, "Well, I'm obviously Chinese, and I'm happy that you brought that to my attention."
This
now.
is a good conversation.
Yeah, but he's
we're bonding.
Yeah, he's like, "Well, no, I was a foreigner, and my buddy and we lived in China for 2 years, so I kind of know what it's like being a fish out of water, and that's really fucking cool. I think that's awesome that you're doing that." And I think you're growing as a person. I'm like, I never hear that shit ever from people. And I was like, you're automatically my bro. And then he introduced me to my other friend, Tetsu, his roommate, who's still in Japan. Unfortunately, that guy, Fukuda-kun, who introduced us, he went back to China, I think. But, that's, yeah, like sometimes you can meet some really fucking, like maybe your best friend, at a company. So, definitely awesome. Anyway, next. Looking forward to this.
Yay.
How did you get your job? Do you miss your old teaching job? Did you take the JLPT? Well, we already talked about how you got the job.
Yeah.
And no to the JLPT. So, do you miss your old teaching job?
I never liked teaching English. I don't particularly. This may make me sound kind of like a dick, but I don't particularly like speaking English with Japanese people. I think that this
To be fair, I was like this for the first couple of years I was here.
Well, no, the same rule applies in America. If you're in America, you should speak English. I think that's the language of the land. So if you're in Japan, you should speak the language of the land, which is Japanese. So I think if you're in Japan, you should speak Japanese. And most people I know, I would say, when they first come here, they have the same sort of thoughts as I do. But then eventually they become more like Sam, and they're like, well, there's all sorts of different reasons, I'm like, nah, fuck that. If you're in Japan, speak Japanese. I'm still, 10 years on, I'm still very much anti-speaking English to Japanese people.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be fair, like, he's, Andrew and I kind of hang out with different crowds. I mean, to be fair, we both hang out with people who mainly only speak Japanese. But, I mean, like I said, like, Andrew's probably my best friend here that's a foreigner, but my best friend who's Japanese here, he's lived in Canada and, China. He's been here for, he's lived in other countries. He speaks English, but just when we're around, he knows that we don't like speaking English with him. So he on purpose only speaks to us in Japanese, and that's cool that you can have friends like that. But me, it's like, I got to a point where one of my good buddies here told me he was fluent, bodyguard for GACT, all this cool shit that he did, and he was just like, I was like, you speak fluent Japanese, why don't I ever hear you fucking speak Japanese to people? And he's like, I just don't like them treating me like Japanese. They treated me a lot nicer when I was a foreigner, so I on purpose don't speak Japanese anymore. And I think that he was an exception, because, a lot of people say they're fluent, but they're not fluent, and they haven't really worked at a Japanese company, so I think that, to be fair, like Andrew's saying, you really need to make an effort to use your Japanese every chance you get. And unfortunately, when we're here, when I first met, we didn't have a problem speaking Japanese to each other only, but it's just like, we're a lot more funnier in English, and sometimes we don't keep up with each other's conversations if it's in Japanese. We just got a lot more in-jokes in English. It's easier, but yeah, when we're around Japanese people, I try to make it a thing, unless I'm making a joke or whatever, or I'm trying to pull a bullshit card. Like, if I don't want to deal with somebody, I'll just fucking speak English really quick. Like, well, sumimasen, I'll be like, oh, sorry, guy, my dick's too hard right now. What? Pancake house?
Pancake house!
Pancake house. Pancake. Anyway, hope that answered your question. Next.
How did you do it?
So-
Did you have to speak fluent Japanese? Oh my god, there's a lot of questions.
Okay, so how did you do it? How do you have to speak fluent Japanese? What jobs do you suggest people look into? Well, we already answered how you did it, and do you speak fluent Japanese? So let's ask, what jobs do you suggest for people to look for once they've gotten Japanese level shit?
Look for a job you like. I mean, that seems pretty basic, right? I mean, look for
I guess
what
if you
are
have
you
a-
interested in? I mean, if your Japanese is good enough, work in a company that you find interesting. If you don't find it interesting, you're gonna quit.
Yeah, to be fair, I was trying to look for jobs at, like, you know, when you know Japanese, you can go on these websites where they have plenty of, like, you know, everybody knows gaijinpot.com.
That's not a good.
No, but I'm using that as an example for everybody who doesn't know Japanese knows gaijinpot.com when you're looking for jobs. It's the #1 site to go to when you're looking for jobs in Japan. But if you know Japanese, there's thousands of sites like that for your specific kind of, you know, thing that you're looking for. Like, I was looking to work at an animation studio for a while just because I like anime. I wanted to see how that worked, and I could always teach English on the side to make up for the lack of paycheck. But I mean, still, like, that was just something I was interested in. But, you know, it's easier when you know Japanese, I think, to go into a translating job, just because it lets you learn about the office. But to be fair, I really hated that job. Like, just sitting in front of a computer every day doing the same fucking thing over and over again.
That leads to a good transition here for me.
Yeah.
That's also a pretty good place to start. I also did some translation interpreting work. And if you want to get your feet wet in a Japanese office, again, as he said, I think that if your Japanese is good enough, but not, I guess, fully proficient.
But you don't know what you want.
Translation interpretation might be a good stepping stone for that. Again, if it's something you're interested in, that would be, again, something you'd already want to look up the information on anyways.
Yeah.
So I think that would definitely be a good idea, I think.
Well, the other video I saw where people were talking, giving advice, the one that I showed you of the red-haired chick and the half-Japanese guy or whatever, they're talking about he worked at a recruiting job or whatever. And I don't know, to be honest, recruiting is like, you know...
don't do that. Don't
guys,
do that.
that's another step in the wrong direction right there. That's like another step towards English teaching, you know? It's not really...
It's a very high turnover job and extremely overtime, a lot of overtime.
Stressful,
Very
commission-based
stressful,
work.
commission-based. I can't.